Question comes of passing the bill to be engrossed, pending which Ms. Sabadosa of Northampton offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk, which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 1. Ms. Sabadosa of Northampton moves to amend the bill by striking out Section 66 and inserting place of the following section, Section 66.
There be no objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the remainder of the amendment. Chair objection, the chair has none. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. The chair recognizes Ms. Sabadosa of Northampton. Ms. Sabadosa of Northampton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. I rise today in support of Amendment 1, ensuring public accountability for school policing. I would like to begin by thanking the gentleman from the North End, the gentle lady from Easton, and their dedicated staff for their work on this legislation in a very short period of time. The ability for public comment was important to help us understand the work before us, and making all testimony public is an important step toward making sure our constituents are fully involved in the process. Amendment 1 deals with policing in our schools. Currently, the law requires police to assign a school resource officer, or SRO, to each district. But there are districts, including my own, that question the need for police officers in their schools. They want to move in a different direction, particularly at a time when our state is anticipating a revenue shortfall of billions of dollars, and districts are sending out pink slips to teachers in huge numbers. We need to give school committees the ability to make these decisions locally. This amendment clarifies the definition of an SRO to extend to school employees deputized by police departments, and places the decision to assign an SRO in the hands of the school committees, which would vote annually. If a superintendent wishes to have an SRO, she would have to inform the school committee and state about 1, the cost, 2, how much funding supports mental and emotional health support personnel, and 3, how many school-based arrests and referrals there were in the previous year. If a superintendent failed to provide this information, her request for an SRO would be deemed invalid. Why is this information important? Because the public deserves, first of all, to know how their money is being spent, detailed at a public meeting, and what school policing looks like in their communities. Currently, major school districts are not reporting their school policing data to DESE. For example, according to their response to a public records request, the Springfield Police Department made 41 school-based arrests in 2018 to 2019. The district reported 0 to DESE. If we want to break the school-to-prison pipeline, and I am certain that that is what we want to do, we need to understand policing in our schools on a granular level. Because what we already know is that school-based police mean school-based arrests, too often for school discipline violations. Behaviors such as schoolyard scuffles, shoving matches, and even verbal altercations, once considered exclusively the domain of school disciplinarians, are now seen to require law enforcement intervention to the detriment of our students. For example, a first arrest doubles the odds a student drops out of school entirely. We already know that Massachusetts Black and Latino students are far more likely to be disciplined at school from district data, and they are, unsurprisingly, far more likely than their white peers to be arrested at school. There is significant misunderstanding between Massachusetts police officers and school administrators on the role of police in schools. In fact, SROs have assumed a variety of roles that range from enforcers of disciplinary codes to caseworkers to keepers of the peace to an extra pair of hands for school administrators. Meanwhile, our state's ratio of students to counselors, 304 to 1, fails to meet the nationally recommended ratio of 250 to 1. The pot of money is only so big, and we need to make sure our cities and towns are using those precious resources in a way that best serves students. This amendment also removes the language for a Model School Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding Review Commission from Section 66 of H 4860. As written, Section 66 strikes the entirety of our current law on school policing, only to reinsert it after establishing a new Model School Resource Officer Memorandum of Understanding Review Commission. However, a model MOU was already created by the Attorney General's Office, the Office of Public Safety and Security, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in 2018 as part of the Criminal Justice Reform Act. It is true that the Juvenile Justice Policy and Data Board has expressed concerns over districts' failure to adopt MOUs that comply with the CJRA. They report that many cities have not adopted the policing agreements required by the CJRA, and fewer still report the data required by law. Going backwards to undo the work of the AG, EOPS, and DESE, only to reappoint them and others to a new commission to ask them to do the same work again, will not increase compliance. But it will open the door to MOUs that increase information sharing with the police and that bolster the school-to-prison pipeline, not break it. Amendment 1 is a first step to supporting our students, ensuring the districts are able to make the best decisions about school policing locally, adding transparency to school policing, and breaking the school-to-prison pipeline. However, today I am asking to withdraw this amendment because I look forward to continuing this conversation as the bill moves forward, and if not in this bill, in the next session. Thank you.
Ms. Sabadosa of Northampton asks that amendment number 1 be withdrawn. Chair objection, the chair has none. Question comes on passing the bill to being roast, pending which Ms. Peisch of Wellesley offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk, which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 111. Ms. Peisch of Wellesley moves to amend the bill by striking out Section 65 and setting place of the following section. Section 65, Section 37L of Chapter 71 of the General Laws is so
Being no
appearing.
objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the remainder of the amendment. The chair hears objection. The chair hears none. Question comes on the adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Chair apologizes. The chair recognizes Ms. Peisch of Wellesley. Ms. Peisch of Wellesley.
Hello, this is Alice Peisch. Can you hear me?
The chair recognizes Ms. Peisch of Wellesley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. I rise in support of Amendment 111, which amends the current SRO statute to ensure that a memorandum of understanding between the police department and the relevant school district best serves the needs of the students in the schools. In addition, the current statute, while it allows for superintendents and districts to request a waiver, it is not as explicit as the bill that is before us. This amendment also makes very clear what information can be shared with the police department from the school district, and it makes it very explicit that it cannot share immigration status, citizenships, and items of that nature. I filed this amendment at the request of the Mass Association of School Superintendents to make clear that information could be shared that would be helpful to the relationship that the school department would like to establish in support of students. So I ask your support for Amendment 111. Thank you.
Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. House will be in a brief recess. Question comes on passing the bill to be engrossed, pending which Mr. Hendricks of New Bedford offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk, which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 18, Representative Hendricks of New Bedford and Cabral of New Bedford move to amend the bill.
There being no objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the remainder of the amendment. Chair objection, the chair hears none. The chair recognizes Mr. Hendricks of New Bedford. Mr. Hendricks of New Bedford.
Thank you. And Mr. Speaker, through you to the members, first let me thank you for the continued support on getting this issue remedied, the issue of police brutality. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, Chairman Gonzalez, the Black and Latino Caucus, as well as the gentlelady from Easton. I rise in support of Amendment 18, which would require public safety officers to report the time and duration of any use of a taser within 24 hours to their supervising officer and the Attorney General's office. It would also require that any third party in the business of collecting and or storing taser use data in the Commonwealth to also report the use of any taser under its purview to the Attorney General's office. All of this would be reporting. All this reporting would have to be done within 24 hours. So why do we need taser regulation data? In 2012, 15-year-old Malcolm Gracia was shot and killed in New Bedford. Malcolm was shot in the back multiple times and once in the side of the head. The police also discharged a taser. This young man had no outstanding warrants, and there was no reason for a detainment or even a stop. Now, while justice for Malcolm is an ongoing effort in my community, Mr. Speaker, one aspect of this event highlights a problem with our current law, and that is tasers used by public safety officials are not required to record and disclose the time of discharge to a third party. In Malcolm's case, the time of discharge, the police alleged, differed from the time collected by the third-party entity that collects taser data. Now, as you can infer, the time the taser was used was instrumental in determining whether or not the use of deadly force was justified. Now I propose this amendment because let's say, for example, someone's going to justify the use of deadly force by saying they first used the taser, but then by the time of the taser discharge is logged at 11 minutes after the last gunshot. That's a huge problem. So by requiring the reporting of this information to a third party, we can better account for evidence related to deadly shootings. This is an exceptionally reasonable measure. It would not regulate behavior. It would not eliminate any tools currently available to the brave men and women on the police force. It would not mandate drastic changes in policy while on the beat. It simply requires timely reporting of lawful conduct. That's it. It is a small burden for law enforcement in exchange for just public transparency regarding potential unlawful behavior. No family should be required to fight for the facts when seeking justice, especially when the truth can so easily be documented. Some police departments already require strict record keeping regarding taser discharge, and they should be commended. Most, in fact. Adding third-party reporting to the Attorney General's office will safeguard any department that may not be as diligent with their information and will enhance public accountability of discharge of tasers by public safety officers. Now, Mr. Speaker, again, I want to thank you for putting this issue on the front burner. I have committed to withdraw this amendment. I just wanted to speak on it, the importance of the issue, and I thank you for the commitment to continue this conversation as we move forward to try to continue to solve this problem. Thank you.
Mr. Hendricks of New Bedford asks unanimous consent that his amendment be withdrawn. Does the chair hear objection? The chair hears none. Question comes of passing the bill to be engrossed, pending which Ms. Tyler of Boston offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk, which the clerk will read.
Amendment number 41, Ms. Tyler of Boston moves to amend the bill by adding the following
There
sections.
be no objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the remainder of the amendment. Chair objection, the chair hears none. The chair recognizes Ms. Tyler of Boston. Ms. Tyler of Boston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. Today, we all recognize that Black men and boys' lives do matter. And because their lives matter, we are here today uplifting House Bill 4860. Black men and boys have historically had poor relationships with our authority, and this bill is the first step in changing that. The goal of this bill is to eliminate racial injustices by police within Black and brown communities particularly. The way we do this is through community policing. We need officers who come from Black and brown communities who look like the residents that live in the communities they serve. Recently, right on this rostrum, we welcomed Commissioner Gross, who happens to be appointed as the first Black commissioner of the Boston Police Department. This bill will work to make officers like Commissioner Gross and other officers of color less of an exception and more of a rule in our communities moving forward. I'm also proud that this bill addresses the entire scope of policing and covers the entire area and covers more policing that we can't see, and that policing is the policing that happens behind walls in our prison systems, which hold a disproportionate amount of Black men and boys. I receive updates almost daily on correctional facility brutality and lifelong traumatizing events that take place behind walls, and it's truly heartbreaking. And what's even worse is that there are people there that are incarcerated who want to help push for these types of reforms, but then face retaliation from the same police force that is supposed to be helping them heal. This type of brutal policing isn't filmed on a cell phone for all to see, but is the type that can go unchecked if we don't make this legislative change to heal with House Bill 4860. So to explore the unseen barriers and inequities of facing our Black men and Black boys, I'm so proud to file this amendment to establish this commission on the social status of Black men and Black boys. It is time that we do away with the disenfranchisement of Black men and Black boys. But first, we must really understand and highlight the systematic forces that have created these injustices. Almost every issue area we face, whether it has to do with policing, public safety, public health, housing, and education, it's all connected. And one commonality between all these issue areas is that Black men and boys have the most alarming disparities. Across the country, it is clear that policing and public safety is the one area where Black men and Black boys suffer from systematic racism the most. It is so alarming that the skin of our brothers, fathers, and family members and students make them a threat in the eyes of the police, and that they are harassed, choked, and killed even after they have the real opportunity to reach their fullest potential in life. And as a sister, cousin, and friend to many Black men and boys, I have seen with my own two eyes how quickly a police interaction can turn just because of who they are, a Black man. So this commission, we will need to study the why. Why have so many of our Black men and boys been taken away from us due to incarceration? Why do so many of our Black men and boys die because of homicide or by police brutality? And there are so many other ways black men and black boys die, whether that be through health or countless other ways, such as prostate cancer when it comes to public health. So we need answers to these questions as to why through this commission. And we will be able to answer these questions and create hows and follow through once this commission gets up and running. So with that, I'd like to thank a few people. The first person is Chairman Gonzalez of the Black and Latino Caucus for his fearless leadership. He has held us down and has been a great leader and has brought us to this point. And from me to you personally, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for your leadership and for exemplifying just what greatness looks like throughout this trying time. I'd also like to thank the Massachusetts Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers, the Massachusetts Latino Police Officers, the Cape Verdean Police Officers Association. And I look forward to the passage of this bill and hopefully this amendment, and call on all the members to hopefully support me in this effort. Thank you so much. Hopefully
House will be in a brief recess. Clerk will reread the amendment as changed.
Ms. Tyler of Boston offers amendment number 41 as changed on the penultimate page and on the last page by striking out in 3 locations the year 2019 and inserting in place thereof the year 2020. Ms. Tyler of Boston moves to amend the bill.
There being no objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the remainder of the amendment. Chair objection, the chair hears none. Question comes on adoption of the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted.
House will be in order. Question now is passed on the bill to be engrossed pending which Mr. Paracello of Beverly. Chair recognizes. Chair recognizes Mr. Paracello of Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. I apologize if I sound like I'm mumbling a little bit. I had a root canal this morning, so I had the pleasure of having that experience. I rise because I hopefully I can clarify some of the provisions of the bill that concern the hearing and appellate process. The bill states that the hearing and appeals will be done pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A. Chapter 30A is the Administrative Procedures Act. This governs how many administrative hearings are conducted here in the Commonwealth. First, how the Commission will promulgate its rules for conducting these hearings. The law states prior to issuing any regulations, a public hearing is required. Notice of the hearing must be given at least 21 days prior, with notice published in local newspapers and other methods informing the public. The notice will also include the express terms or describe the substance of the proposed regulations. So public comment is required prior to the adoption of the Commission's regulations. As for the hearings themselves, again, they are governed by the Administrative Procedures Act. These hearings are quasi-judicial in nature. Although not as formal as a proceeding in court, the law specifically requires in Section 10 that agencies shall afford all parties an opportunity for a full and fair hearing. The law lays out some of the requirements of the hearing. These include sufficient notice of the issues involved to afford parties reasonable opportunity to prepare and present evidence and argument. The Commission will take in evidence, and every party shall have the right to call and examine witnesses, introduce exhibits, and cross-examine witnesses. The decisions of the Commission must be made in writing and include a statement for the reasons of the decision and explain the appellate rights of those who feel aggrieved at a decision. Those are just some of the basics that are required. The Code of Massachusetts Regulations also has a roughly 20-page detailed set of rules for administrative hearings. Finally, if a party wishes to appeal, he or she may do so to the Superior Court. That's the same appellate rights that would occur under the Civil Service Commission. I hope this clarifies the hearing and appellate process for the members, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to address this matter.
House will be in a brief recess. House will be in order. Question now is on passing the bill of being gross, pending which Mr. Rogers of Cambridge offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 179, Mr. Rogers of Cambridge moves to amend the bill in section 25 by inserting after line 248 the following paragraph. E, any violation of this section
If there be no objection, the clerk will dispense with reading the paper. The chair hears none. Chair recognizes Mr. Rogers of Cambridge. Mr. Rogers of Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the members. I rise today to speak about Amendment 179, but before I do, I first want to say a few words about this legislation and this moment. I want to thank the members of the Black and Latino Caucus for their amazing leadership and their chair, Representative Gonzalez. We're fortunate to have your brave stewardship of this legislation, and thank you to all of you. I want to thank the Speaker, who before anyone else in this state in elected office boldly came out right away saying we needed to take significant action. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your leadership and to your staff. I want to thank Chair Cronin, who has worked tirelessly. I've been able to call Representative Cronin at midnight, text her at 8 in the morning. I know the bill came out Sunday night at 10 o'clock, roughly, and all the members, all we needed to do was see that email, and when it came out, to know how she and her staff have been working. And I want to thank Chair Michaelwitz and his staff for their outstanding leadership on this bill. The nation just lost one of our greatest leaders last week in Honorable Representative John Lewis. He famously helped to lead the Freedom Rides. And though the Freedom Riders were repeatedly attacked, they were nonviolent in their approach. And during those rides, he said, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? And I want to say to all those who've led this effort, we have heard that call and the fierce urgency of now. And I'm proud to be standing with you as we take bold action. And as Chair Cronin outlined, we are breaking new ground with the 4 core priorities of the Black and Latino Caucus on police standards and training, on clear limitations on the use of force, on the duty to intervene, and on many countless other issues. And I'm grateful to Representative Cronin and others in leadership for incorporating a bill I filed on facial recognition. And before I very briefly talk about that, you have to understand why this is so important. We now know that for quite some time now, without a warrant, without any supervision, without any regulations, the Registry of Motor Vehicles database has been used by law enforcement. It's never been audited to see if there's fraud or misuse. In other words, the state's using powerful surveillance technology without any serious regulation or oversight. This technology has been conclusively proven to misidentify people of color and women, and it is so important that we take this step today. And what we're doing, of course, is forbidding all public agencies from acquiring, accessing, or using that software for biometric surveillance except for the RMV. And even with the RMV, we're only allowing those searches with a warrant or in the case of immediate danger. And those records of the warrants shall be public records that we can access and track what's going on. And finally, a commission will be formed. This is a bold step. It is one more example of how we are addressing systemic racism and also protecting Fourth Amendment constitutional civil liberties. I filed this amendment on a private right of action related to a violation of facial surveillance because I think it's a conversation we need to have going forward. I thank those in leadership for their assurance that we will continue to have this conversation. And so for now, I'm withdrawing that amendment, and I thank you very much to all my colleagues for what we're doing today. And I yield back.
Mr. Rogers asked the amendment be withdrawn. Does the chair have objection? Chair has none. Question now is on passing the bill being engrossed, pending which Whelan of Newton offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 11, Representatives Whelan of Newton, O'Day of West Boylston, Malia of Boston, move to amend the bill by adding the following sections. Section 7 of Chapter 4 of the General Laws is appearing in the 2018 official edition is hereby amended by striking out the 60...
If there be no objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the paper. The chair has none. Chair recognizes Ms. Whelan of Newton. Chair recognizes Ms. Whelan of Newton.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Chair recognizes Ms. Whelan of Newton. Question now is on passing the bill engrossed, pending which Whelan of Newton offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 11, Representatives Whelan of Newton, O'Day of West Boylston, Malia of Boston, move to amend the bill by adding the following sections. Section 7 of Chapter 4 of the General Laws is appearing in the 2018 official edition is hereby amended by striking out the...
If there be no objection, the clerk will dispense with the paper. The chair has none. Chair recognizes Ms. Whelan of Newton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm pleased to be able to speak on. Hello, can you hear me?
Chair recognizes Ms. Whelan of Newton.
I'm speaking on. It's very confusing. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening. I am here really. I'm here to really withdraw my amendment on raising the age. It's number 103, and I'm sorry that I have to withdraw it, but I hope I can continue to have the conversation. I think it's an important discussion. So this is really raising the age of criminal majority for 18-year-olds to a youth's 19th birthday, therefore encompassing a full cohort of high school age peers. There's really overwhelming evidence that the over-policing of predominantly Black and Latinx communities and schools has a devastating consequence on the educational outcomes of children and youth, and also on their trajectory into the school-to-prison pipeline. I really want to thank Chair Cronin, Chair Michaelwitz, and Chair Gonzalez of the Black and Latino Caucus for all of the work that you've put into this. And I hope we can continue to have the conversation because according to the Sentencing Project, Massachusetts has the 6th worst Black and white disparity in youth incarceration, with Black youth 10 times more likely to be incarcerated than white youth. So I think it's important for us to really consider this.
and I hope that I can still continue to work on it with you in the future. I just want to also mention that LGBTQ youth and those who are girls, transgender youth, or youth of color are also overrepresented in the juvenile system. So I think it's really important for us to think about raising the age to at least 19. It's 19th birthday. These are young people that are still in school, and I'm very, very impressed with the work of the Department of DYS, the Department of Youth Services. They do a great job with young people and really help them finish their education and really change the way they're thinking and help them move on with their lives. So we really do hope to be able to continue this conversation. And thank you again for considering Amendment 103. And thank you again to all who've been working so hard on this piece of legislation that we're looking at today. Thank you.
Ms. Conner-Newton asks unanimous consent to withdraw her amendment. Does the chair have objection? Chair has none. Mr. Jones of North Reading now moved that the House stand in recess till the hour of 7:15. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed nay. The ayes have it. House stands in recess till the hour of 7:15. House will be in order. Paper from the Senate.
The House bill authorizing and accelerating transportation investments, House number 4547, comes from the Senate with the endorsements been passed to be engrossed in concurrence by said branch with an amendment striking out after the enacting clause and inserting in place of the text of contained in Senate document numbered 2836.
Mr. Strauss of Mattapoisett moves suspension of the rules. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Rules are suspended. Question now comes on concurrence. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed nay. The nays have it. House does not concur. Mr. Strauss of Mattapoisett asks that a committee of conference be appointed. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Committee of conference will be appointed. The chair appoints the following: Mr. Strauss of Mattapoisett, Mr. Cusack of Braintree, Mr. Orrell of Lakeville. House will be in a brief recess. House will be in order. Question is passing the bill to be engrossed, pending which Ms. Campbell of Methuen offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. Clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 11. Representatives Campbell of Methuen and Paracella of Beverly move to amend the bill in section 85 in line 1759 by inserting after the word designee the following: one of whom shall be the commander of the
If there
disabled
be no
American.
objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the paper. The chair has none. Chair recognizes Ms. Campbell of Methuen. Chair recognizes Ms. Campbell of Methuen.
Mr. Speaker, through you to our members, I want to thank you and Chair Cronin and Chair Michaelwitz and most significantly our Black and Latino caucus for all the great work they did to bring this legislation before us. Chair Paracella and I filed the amendment on behalf of the Massachusetts chapter of Disabled American Veterans. The amendment requires inclusion of a representative from this organization on the Special Legislative Commission to study and examine the civil service law, personnel administration rules, hiring procedures, and bylaws for municipalities not subject to the civil service law and the state police hiring practices. As many of you know, the disabled American veterans do their homework, and they often testify before our committees on matters that are important. For them, they don't raise their hand unless it's really important. Theirs is a very modest request that will not change the balance of power on this commission, but it will give this group most deservedly a seat at the table. And I ask that we remember right now that 1% of the population of our country is currently serving in the armed forces. And I think it is appropriate that they have a seat at this table. And Mr. Speaker, I ask that when a vote is taken on this amendment, that it be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. Thank you.
Also been in brief recess. Ms. Campbell of Methuen asks for a roll call vote. Those joining with will rise. First Division. 18. Sufficient number having arisen. When the matter is taken, be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. House will be in order. Roll call being required. The roll call machine is now open. Monitors, notify your members of a roll call in progress.
For the monitors, this is roll call number 204.
On this matter, 159 members voted in the affirmative, none the negative. The bill is passed. The amendment is passed. Also be in order. Question now is on passing the bill to be engrossed pending which Ms. Khan of Newton offers an amendment in the hands of the clerk. The clerk will read the amendment.
Amendment number 78. Ms. Khan of Newton moves to amend the bill in line 1880 of section 88 by inserting after the word designee the following. One of whom shall be
If there
executive
be
director.
no objection, the clerk will dispense with the reading of the paper. The chair has none. Question now is on the amendment. Chair recognizes Ms. Khan of Newton. Chair recognizes Ms. Khan of Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of amendment number 78. This amendment would add a member of the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless to each of the 3 special legislative commissions created by the bill: structural racism in correctional facilities, structural racism in the parole process, and structural racism in Massachusetts, structural racism in Massachusetts, along with other organizations such as UTEC, UCA, LGBTQ, and the immigrant community. Racial inequity causes homelessness. These inequities have been perpetuated by structural racism throughout every aspect of our society, ranging from criminal justice, employment, healthcare access, economic opportunity, education, and housing. Collectively, these disparities reflect an unacceptable indifference to the humanity of Black and brown people. This gross injustices must end. These injustices must end. Adding the Massachusetts Coalition for the Homeless to these commissions is vital to addressing racial equity in the fight to end homelessness. I hope you will join me in supporting this amendment, and I ask when a vote be taken, it be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. Thank you.
Ms. Khan asks when the matter is taken, be taken by a call of the yeas and nays. Those joining with will let the monitors know. First Division. Sufficient number having arisen when the matter is taken, be taken by calls of the yeas and nays. Roll call requested. The roll call machine is now open. Monitors, notify your members of a roll call in progress.
For the monitors, this is roll call number 205. 205.
On this matter, 158 members voted in the affirmative, none in the negative. The amendment is adopted. House will be in a brief recess. House will be in order. Since the rules do not permit the House to meet beyond the hour, House will be in a recess. House will be in order. The House will stand in recess until the hour of 11 a.m. tomorrow, Thursday. Roll calls will be at 11 a.m.